Welcome to the Music Licensing Podcast. I'm your co-host, Sonnet Simmons.
And I'm John Kleinbell. Each week we sit down with top professionals in the sync world to discuss their experiences and offer inside insights on what it takes to place song to picture.
From music supervisors to ad agency executives, from trailer houses to indie artists racking up licenses with their music, we'll be talking to all of the people who make the sync magic happen.
Music is the backbone of a successful film or TV show.
It's all about finding the right fit for the right song, for the right moment.
I think the key to success in music licensing is really building relationships.
If you're passionate about music and the business behind making compelling media, this is the podcast for you.
Join us each week as we dive into the fascinating world of sync and explore it with the people it takes to make it all click.
The Music Licensing Podcast, where business meets the art of storytelling in media.
Are you loving the information shared by our guests and hungry for more? Consider becoming a patron of the podcast. Our patrons get exclusive access to extra content from our guests each month. We have bonus content in our Patreon page that is only for our patrons. For $3 a month, you get this access and you help support us bring this podcast to you each week. You can go to musiclicensingpodcast.com to become a patron today and get extra access.
This week on the Music Licensing Podcast, we go in depth with my friend and 2Indie co-founders, Sonnet Simmons, on her sync and songwriting journey. She's found success lighting up TV audiences with her voice across the country, as well as through her captivating songs, which have aired supporting some of the biggest brands and shows around. In this episode, she shares some of her favorite songwriting tips and gives a lot of practical and actionable advice for indie artists to run with. Let's jump into the discussion.
Now, Sonnet, you were born in Athens, Greece, which was a really interesting thing. I don't know if that ever really registered to me that you were born in a foreign country. And I'm just curious, do you ever go there? Do you ever go to Greece? Is that a part of anything that you've done creatively with your journey? Or is that just something that's like just an interesting footnote?
I've traveled there a couple of times, and it's something I think now that I have kids, I want to bring them back there and have that be a part of their lives too a bit. But yeah, it's I don't have family there. I haven't gone to spend every summer of my life there, but I do go back. I left it's complicated. I left at 3, but we moved to India and we lived a couple of places. So it's a bit complicated, but I was born in Greece, in Athens. Yeah.
Interesting. It's fascinating. And then in terms of when did you know that, I mean, you must have known pretty early on that you were a good singer. Like, at what point did you realize, I sing these things and people seem to pay attention? Like, was that something that you realized?
When you asked me to
on?
do this, I thought we were just talking about songwriting tips. Sonnet, we're going to dive into your life today. All right. Okay. No, I mean, I was singing since forever. That's it. I moved around a lot as a kid. And that was the thing that was I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to be a famous singer. And so nothing phases me. I'm good. We can move, we can have all these things happen that. I just have a North Star. Yeah. And I got praised for it. So I just was wherever I went, whatever school, you're a singer, you make friends really fast. You always have a place in choir. It just was kind of my North Star since the beginning. I mean, I think before I could talk, I was singing. So it was never one day it hit me. I think it's just always been the reality of
just
my
in your
existence.
Bones from the start, it sounds like.
In my bones. Yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually what ended up happening is you ended up on, and I'm sure there's a journey before that. We're not going to go into your entire life story. I do like to get into a little bit of that, but at some point you ended up being a star on TV. And how did were you writing songs at that point? I'm curious, was that something that happened as you were attempting to be, a successful independent artist, or were you looking for a label deal? Where did that all land when you were appearing on Rising Star in 2014 with celebrity judges like Brad Paisley and Kesha and Ludacris and those folks? Where in your journey did that all kind of happen?
Yeah, I mean, I was playing out, I was writing music, I was releasing music. I had actually I had auditioned for something else that was like label based, and that was the year before. And then they remembered me and they brought me in for this show. And ABC was like, "Oh, we have something else for her." And then they brought me in for this show, and that's how I got the show. It was me, doing my own music, being a singer songwriter on the LA scene, playing Hotel Cafe, all that stuff. I had a band, all girl band. We were pretty cool.
Awesome.
And the show came up and they were looking for, artists, singers. And it was a big series of auditions. It took about 6 months to make it through all the rounds.
Wow.
And then they put us up in the SLS hotel, and it was really fun. It was a pivotal moment, chapter. It was like a chapter opening and closing also at the same time in life. It was big.
Yeah. Such a cool experience, and to perform under the pressure, and it seems like you got through a few of the rounds, and you were in the contention. It seems like you were you got through a few of the rounds, that's not easy to do either, and the pressure with the national TV and all that stuff, pretty crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And in terms of after that all happened, was it something where more opportunities kind of came your way, or did you take kind of a step back and assess where you wanted to go with things, and then started to take a course? What happened after that?
I found sync after that. I mean, I'd already found sync. I had already had some success in sync accidentally along the way, and didn't take the time to stop to think, like, how do I repeat this process? I had some really great little magical moments. And after the show, I just felt really heartbroken. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like the journey of the creative, it was like, this is just a reality show. They're just looking for ratings, and this is like my life's work. Like I'm done. Like I just kind of felt really discouraged, and decided that I wanted to have children. And so I met my husband like 3 weeks after that, and I got into sync. Kathy Heller sent me an email and was like, "Hey, come to this thing that I'm doing." And I was like, all right, maybe I won't give up on music completely. Maybe there's a space for me. I do happen to have a lot of success in sync. Maybe I should figure out how to repeat that. And so the rest, I started going to Kathy Heller's workshop. I noticed that it was only Kathy, and I was like, "Hey, can I work for you?" And ended up living down the street from Kathy. Showed up at her door every morning at 6 a.m. with coffee. I didn't have children at the time. And, started running her licensing business, and started learning the ropes and meeting the people and networking and going to meetings with sync supervisors and other people. And that's kind of like where I finally got serious about doing it deliberetely.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did.
So it was kind of like bang, bang, just like all kind of happened like right away. Not it fascinating how like you can go through an experience and then it's like, wow, this was the thing that gets you to this and to this, and it all happens so fast. And in terms of working for Kathy, learning to network learning how to become a more effective songwriter, artist for sync, learning how from somebody who's obviously a master at building relationships in the industry, all of that stuff. Was it something when it came to sync and furthering your sync career, was it something where there was one thing that you realized, I need to focus on this for a little while more than anything else? Was there anything that you realized, this is something that I need to shore up big time in order to take myself to the next level here?
I need to stop writing love songs, heartbreak songs about my heartbreaking. I need to stop doing that. One, like, I'm done with that part of my life. And two, like, there's a whole nother world. Like, what if you dig deeper? Like, what else do you have to say? What other messages do you want to leave with the world? That was my big dig in of like what I have written so far have been songs that lyrically didn't quite fit well with sync all the time. They were really like, woe is me and the world sort of things. And so, I felt like I got to grow as a person by digging into the ideas of what do I really want to say? Because when we're teaching those programs with Kathy, it was like, everybody's like, well, I don't want to sell out. I don't want to be cheesy. Like, everything's not happy. And it's not about being happy. It's not about being cheesy. It's about really digging in and finding something to say that, like, when I listen to music now, I'm like, I can't relate to that. Like, write a song that helps me relate, like brings me into the story, like helps me see my story and your story. And if you can do that, it really amplifies your songwriting, because you're helping other people feel seen in your work, and not just kind of standing up on your soapbox telling them like your story. You're helping them have their story and process their story through your story. So I feel like that was the biggest part for me to dig into, and really so helpful for me.
It's amazing stuff in terms of realizing, oh, okay, this theme that I could possibly just associate with a past chapter of my life so strongly is something that doesn't seem to be the best course of action. And then, but at the same time, it's like, find a way, because the music that really does move you is the music that tends to get used. It's like, well, how can I put myself in that space to create that kind of music? And it makes me think of the follow-up to that is, well, what's kind of the ideal conditions for you to put yourself in that place where you can write music that moves yourself, and obviously the goal is to move other people, to make music that's real, that's authentic, that speaks to stories, I suppose, with Sync that, that are kind of universal stories, but that can stir authentic emotions in people. What are kind of the conditions for you when whether you're collaborating or you just decide you want to write a song on your own? Like, what are your favorite conditions to write that kind of stuff in?
I mean, I think I have two lanes. I have the collaboration. I love just top lining a track, a track that feels inspiring and is a great track to top line. And what comes, like, what does it elicit? What's the feeling? And then you kind of just go and you trust the process and you just kind of go. And then my other one is just sitting at the piano, feeling like there's something going on that I need to process, and start just like letting it happen. And, both of those have served me well. Both of those are ways that I write.
That's awesome. Well, in terms of the piano, that's is that the only instrument you play? Do you play other instruments at all?
The only instrument I play well.
How'd you learn how to play piano?
I can play a few. I did, but I did not pay attention, because I was certain that I could just do it by myself, because I taught myself how to play by ear. And, as a kid, I was like, we had a piano in the house. I was, my mom tried to put me in lessons. I didn't want to practice. I told the piano teacher I knew how to do it. Apparently I have telling my teachers I know how to do things. But I did finally get serious about it. I went to UCLA for music, and we had to take piano. And I knew enough to accompany myself, but we actually had to test and study and really get proficient at it. So I took a semester to really dig in and fill in the gaps of where, but mostly it was just me teaching myself, because I loved it and wanted to do it. And I wouldn't say I'm a master at piano, but I can get around and definitely, know my chords and such.
Are there some favorite chord progressions you like to write to? Like, I'm not a music theory guy at all.
No.
But just whatever you're feeling.
Yeah. I'm always trying to push the envelope. Push because I always end up going for the same chords, because your fingers are just normal, used to that. And I'm like, what's something else I could pick here? I just wrote a song where the chords, I didn't write these chords, but it's so fun when you collaborate with somebody who picks some chords where you're like, I wouldn't pick that. And that's so fun. So interesting. You just kind of made my ear have to listen to something differently, which is why I love top lining stuff. It's we get to collaborate on a whole nother level. I'm not responsible for the entire structure of the song.
Would you say that is one of the, collaboration, one of the secrets for you, just your personal, songwriting secrets to success, whether it's in Sync or otherwise? Would you say that's maybe one of your secrets? And if it's not, I'd love to hear, maybe a couple others, if you've got any of your personal favorite songwriting secrets.
Are you making amazing music and want to have your song signed to sync agencies that can pitch your music for opportunities in TV, film, ads, promos, games, come on over and join our Licensing Basecamp private sync community. Every month, we partner with a different licensing agency. This licensing agency gives you a song brief, a song assignment to write to for that month. You will have a month to create an amazing song that is needed in sync. You will collaborate with other people in the community if you choose to. At the end of the month, the top songs are selected and put on a playlist. That playlist is sent to 10 to 20 different sync agencies. Each month, people in our community are getting their songs signed. They're getting sync deals. They are getting placements on television shows and commercials. And they are working together. They're feeling less alone. They're feeling driven, and they're feeling like they have a roadmap and a place in the industry. So if that feels like something that would be super supportive to you, go on over to 2indie.com. That's the number 2indie.com, and join our Licensing Basecamp community. There are a bunch of other free resources on there. Grab them, dive into the content that we create. We are two independent artists who create resources for other independent artists to find their way in the music industry.
Okay, and now back to the episode.
I mean, I think collaboration is really important. I would say some of my favorite songs are not collaborations because there's something, and some of my most successful songs, you know, it's just like collaboration is incredibly important for innovating a song, for finding if you're collaborating with people that really inspire you, that help push the envelope, that help teach you, that help inspire you to like be better, and can help take it over the finish line. Like, I cannot produce these songs. I am not a producer. So when I collaborate with somebody who brings something to the table that I don't bring to the table, like it couldn't have existed without that. So in one sense of the word, like every song I have is a collaboration because I have not produced them. But in terms of just the song as a whole, I would say one of the things that I've had to learn is like trusting yourself. How do you speak up and advocate for something that you want in a song or that you feel is right without negating everybody else's opinions in the collaboration, supporting other people, and also just not letting it go by and trusting that you bring something to the table that, you know, like your intuition matters on a piece. And so I think there's a delicate balance there of being like, okay, let's check out your idea and check out my idea. Let's go back and forth. I never want to like, it's never like my way or the highway. And also you want to make sure that you're speaking up for something that feels important to you. So I don't know. It's a dance. Like I know all of you know, like the dance of being a creative and creating with other people and just having somebody in the room. Like John and I do a lot of songwriting together. Just us being in the room together creates something. And it's something that I would never have created if I was by myself, you know? So there's so much magic to just being in the room with somebody and throwing around ideas, and then they take your idea and they like 10x your idea, and you're like, oh my God, that's even better. Like, you know, it's really, collaboration is really, it's like a superpower. If you're really in it. And then, you know, when things don't work out, it's not a good collaboration. You just don't do that again.
Yeah.
We've all had that too.
These are really amazing points you're bringing up in terms of, you know, just if you are working with folks that you're on the same wavelength with and you have that openness, they have that openness, and there's creative sparks are flying, then it can really take an idea that it doesn't matter necessarily who brought it up or things like that, and really elevate it up to a whole other level. And then one of the things that you are so good at is, and I just know from working with you, I've had the pleasure of writing with you many times, is that you're very good at, you know, when there's something you feel is very important, at speaking up about that. I'm curious in terms of that, is that something that you had kind of an aha about, or is that something that just through trial and error, you're just like, I got to learn to trust my gut more. I got to learn because this situation turned out not as good as it would have if I knew that this line that I had, if I'd gone to bat for it some more, or, you know, maybe I'm making it more complicated than it actually was for you, where you realize that this is an important thing for you. But, and I think it's an important thing for every writer to, you know, take to heart and learn how to do. But I'm curious, was there like, you know, a moment where you're just like, I gotta I got to do this differently from now on? Or is it just something over time that you just kind of came to you as something that is just that you're going to do it from now on?
I think what I just would end up with songs where I was like it's just not quite there. And I didn't push for, whatever. It's not necessarily like a line. Like I feel like, lyrical line, whatever. Like you and I, we go back and forth, we come up with the best thing. Like nobody's gonna like die on a hill trying to get their line in the song. It's more just like when you have that song and you're like, ugh, if we finish this song, it's always going to be the song that's like, it's just not quite there. And having a few of those and being like, what am I going to do? Like, it's just never landed because I didn't go to bat all the way being like, can we just change? It's usually like, a vocal performance or like drop out the bass here or whatever it might be, that really helps bring it home and trusting. And I think it takes kind of like honing your ear, trusting your ear, and also being able to compromise. I think you and I compromise really well when we're songwriting, and are really respectful of what each other bring to the table, and trusting. And there's a certain aspect of like, I don't hear that, but I trust your ears. You hear something that's cool there. Like, let me like trust that too, because that's also the magic of, it's not just like my way or the highway,
Yeah, there's a certain
all
amount.
things are true at the same time.
Well, there's a certain amount of that in terms of, where the ideas come from, who takes credit for it, who cares. Like at the end of the day, like sometimes it's whatever the best thing is for the song is usually what wins out, unless there's like, I guess like the personalities behind it all or the egos getting in the way of that happening, which those are, I think, pointing back to that situation where you were talking about earlier. That's not somebody I'm going to write with again, just because it's sometimes these kinds of things can pop up too. But it's really a beautiful thing when you enter into a collaborative space with somebody. There's trust. There's also a lot of times too, some of that trust can, at least in my experience, can come from like what they're bringing to the table in the collaboration in terms of like just what they've done in the past. If I've never written with them before, it's like, well, they must be good if, so maybe I'll give this line that I thought, it's not my favorite line. It's not the way I would have written it, but they must know what they're doing. So I think there's a certain amount of that as well. It's like letting go of your own ego with all this stuff that you express so beautifully. Another thing I wanted to ask was just, you're so good. And so it seems, I've had the pleasure of working with you and founding 2Indie for quite some time. And it's just, you're such an effortlessly graceful networker. And that's something that doesn't come easy to a lot of people, I will say. It definitely isn't like not my natural thing. It's not my like biggest gift is not being able to effortlessly, authentically network with people and make it easy and all of that stuff. And it's just something that I've seen firsthand from you. In many cases, I've just witnessed you when you're talking to people in the industry and all that stuff. And I'm just kind of curious, like how did your journey evolve with that? Or was that another one of those things where like when you just knew you could sing from an early age and you just do, have you always been a people person, or is this something that you've had to develop over time and get better at? I'm just kind of curious for all of us out there who it doesn't come like, it's not like second nature to us,
No, I don't think that I would call myself a people person. I mean, I think it comes with just doing your work as a person, as you become more like, this is who I am and you are who you are and you're just a person and I'm just a person, and kind of like disarming the other person, being like, I am so human and so are you. And I'm just going to speak to you from that place. It's, I don't always get it right. I'm not great at this, but I really try to just come at it from that space. Like, Brené Brown has this line, which I love. And I try to remember it. Like, I'm not going to puff myself up and I'm not going to diminish myself. Like, I just am going to be who I am. I'm not going to try to impress them. I'm not going to try to be less than me to make them feel comfortable. I'm just, how can I be the most authentic me? And that takes inner work of time. You know, that is not something I was just born with. So it's a work in progress. I'm always working on it. And sometimes I'm like, I put my foot in the mouth so many times in that conversation. And it always seems to be like the same conversation, the same person you do it with. You know, it's like, oh my God, 5 times with one person. Couldn't spread it out over 5 people. But, you know, I don't have it down, but I just try to come from that space.
Well, it sounds like the best advice then is, just get going with it as soon as you can and you get better over time.
Yeah. And I think asking other people questions, being interested in what they have to say, like less worried about you and more concerned about who are they on like a real level, on a real, you know, not what can they do for you? What can they bring to your table? But like, what are they up to? How do you guys, you know, yeah.
It's been such a pleasure to, you know, even though we talk to each other almost every freaking day, it's like to sit down with the songwriter Sonnet Simmons and ask.
Yeah, thanks. That's nice.
You know, this has been really great to sit down and have this conversation.
A special shout out to Daniel Lim for providing this incredible music to our podcast, and Kurt Hunter, our editor.
Big thanks to our patrons on Patreon: Holger Willebrandt, Carolee Garrison, Daniel Trilk, Ted Meyerson, Willow Speak, Mark Stone from the Dirty Country Band, Lisa Dunn, Gabrielle Tarrin, and Claire Heaton. We can't do it without you. Thank you so much for your support.